Like, we have this open lawn with one little tree. So we're like, we like that tree. I don't know who I can ask. But my friend had her baby on Friday the 13th on her due date.
Wow.
Which is impressive.
That is impressive.
Right. So we've been running point for their current. Well, he just had his birthday on Tuesday, so now he's 4, but it's just been busy.
That's pretty
Glad
cool.
we can help. Yeah.
Look at how shiny it is.
Yeah, nice,
I like
right?
it. Very nice. I need to work
Oh, I ran
that
into
on
one
my.
company. Friendship Park, and they didn't know what I was. The name of Friendship Park
Right.
at all, and
Right.
so leave your mark on Friendship. And I was like, yeah, well, that makes. Yeah.
I'm not sure if Adele's coming, so
Okay, let's start.
let's go ahead and get going.
Yeah.
So seeing that it's 7:03, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the April 19th meeting of the Roberts Field Advisory Committee. We'll start our meeting today like we start all of our meetings with public input. Is there anybody here that has anything that they'd like to share? There'll be lots of opportunities later for sharing as well. Seeing none, the agenda for, well, first, Chelmsford Telemedia is recording this and broadcasting this meeting live. Our meeting agenda today, we are mainly going to be talking about the natural playground design and concepts. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the playground signage and then have some discussions about fundraising and community build, and then finish up with meeting minutes approvals. And I'm hopeful that we can get out of here by 8:30 or 9. So if I talk really fast,
I'm good with
you'll
that.
know why. So I just want, the first thing that I wanted to clarify and to bring up is that I did talk to Steve, and he did say that the area, the fenced-in, perimeter fenced-in area is going to include that area that we had asked for 2 meetings ago.
The tree.
Inside the tree, right, kind of where that arrow's pointing, the fence line will be extended down, and then the fence line will include the tree. He didn't give me a revised drawing, but his comments were that he would include it like the drawing that Marcus had provided,
Okay.
and that would be the first thing to get cut if we ran out of money. So, he also said, while we're talking about the fence, that the plans were to put in black vinyl coated perimeter fencing, and I pointed out to him, and we should talk about this, that in the master plan, and from that committee at least, there was discussions of using green vinyl, and I didn't know if you guys had a preference either way. His comments on that were that he felt like the black vinyl would wear better, not fade, and that was his preference to go with the black. I don't know if you guys had any feelings or wanted to make any request about color choices for it, or we can hold off and talk about it later too.
I'm having a hard time picturing whether green vinyl disappears better or whether it disappears worse, depending on what the. Like, I think black vinyl often disappears pretty well, but
When you say disappear, you mean like kind of blend in with the
yeah,
with
but
the grass and surroundings?
I'm kind of thinking green vinyl. I can't really think of what green vinyl fencing looks like, so I have a hard time.
My going back to the original idea of the green was that usually when you see like natural parks or nature parks and stuff, you see a lot of green vinyl. At least I think I have. That's kind of an anecdotal thing, but that's where I think my impression of the green vinyl being a little less, a little more maybe natural looking kind of went in. But I'm okay with either way. My preference would be green, but I'm good either way.
I don't think I have a preference. I can see black delineating the area a little bit better, letting people know there's a fence, right? Where if you're driving by, you might not see the green. I think there's pros and cons to each, so whatever they're gonna go with is fine.
I like the idea of it disappearing more, but if green is gonna fade and get like yellowy or weird or
Yeah.
something,
Right.
then a black is,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we just have to defer.
I guess I don't care.
Okay, no
No.
preference. So that's fair.
No preference.
So
Or I would know enough about it to care.
With you on that one.
Yes.
So any comments from anybody here or questions about that section being added back into the perimeter fencing?
So where's the gate gonna be?
Sort of in between the,
Where it's drawn there.
Well, the whole thing's getting extended.
The way Marcus drew it, I think the fence kind of went, kind of ended here, so I think the fence will be, the gate will actually be somewhere in this area. So as we get into the discussion of the natural playground, the natural play area, it'll kind of open up here. This will still be a green, open space,
Mhm.
right? And then the natural play area would be in here, so it would, so it would kind of all work together. And what he did say was that, one of the things we're gonna talk about is, in the natural play area, actually putting in a butterfly garden as well. And we talked last time about making that sort of a satellite thing.
Yeah.
And it would be up here by the fence edge, but, far enough away from the gate so that the gate could swing and sort of hit into it or hit towards it, but not so close that the gate would open fully. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Look,
What do you mean, not so close that the gate would open fully?
let's just say, for instance, this is the fence line, and this is the actual gate. So the butterfly garden might be like right in this area, and so when the gate opens, it'll open all the way, open that way, potentially butting into the garden, but not, the garden wouldn't keep it from opening fully.
Or they
Okay,
could
the
just
garden's
have
not
it
gonna
swing
permit.
out.
Or they could have it swing out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
as
guess
long-
I wouldn't want it to get anywhere near the garden because I
Okay,
wouldn't
well,
trust.
he did mention that we could swing it out if we wanted to, so we could make
Okay,
that.
I would imagine that if it's possible for it to swing into the butterfly garden's gonna get damaged.
So you want to just have it swing out then?
I think that's probably safer.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make that preference. Any other comments? And there'll be lots of other opportunities to talk about the natural play area. I didn't get anything written from him this time for an update, but I did get some information that we'll go through and I'll share with you as we go through the specifics that we talked about. This was a revised 2D drawing that we got and just got them to recolor the board in place. So that's posted in all of our online materials now.
Cool.
I did find out too, because it's marked on here, that the shade structure is actually a 16 by 20 foot shade structure. It's not 16 by 12, so that means that it's gonna be,
Even bigger?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's gonna be even bigger.
That's great.
And they're gonna put two picnic tables, 8-foot picnic tables, and they pick the styles, and I'll share those with you when I get to it.
Wait, so we've gotten a bigger shade structure with fewer picnic tables?
I think the tables are bigger, but we can, I think they were talking about 6-foot tables before, but the numbers that he gave me were 2 picnic tables,
Okay,
8 feet.
and they're gonna still have the pull-up area for the wheelchair?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And I'll show you the style that they're looking at and what they have in mind in another slide.
Okay, so it's gonna take up more space into where the natural play area.
Correct. And we'll need to accommodate it as well for some sort of pathway access around it to get into the natural play area as well. And we'll cover up on that in a minute as well.
Okay.
Other than that, there's not really anything else on here. And I haven't gotten any information back about the interior brick pathway yet. But I will say that before we started the meeting, that we sold our 300th brick.
Yay! That's excellent.
Yeah.
And me and at least one of my friends are planning on buying bricks, and we just haven't decided exactly what to write yet. So
Right.
I'm sure there's other people out there just reconsidering what they're writing until the end, and then they'll.
Oh, yes, lots of people reconsidering what they're writing.
Oh, no.
I would like to make changes. No problem.
So
See, we're trying to do that. We're
That's
trying
okay.
To just
I
give
don't
you the
mind.
first.
we'll get into more on that later too. Any other comments or questions about this?
So he hasn't responded at all about the bricks going inside.
So I sent him that image that we shared last time that had the 3 different priority zones.
Yeah.
And he was going to give me the distances so that we could estimate what the costs were, so we could see where we are on how much
Okay,
we've
but
raised
he
and how much we
hasn't-
can afford. So I
It's
haven't
not
gotten-
like he said, no, we can't put them inside, or yes, we're definitely putting them inside. Or
the sense that I got was that there was no issue with putting them inside.
Okay.
So the placement of putting inside is fine. It was just
okay,
a matter
that
of.
one I didn't know if we'd had a answer one way or the other.
No, I'm just looking for how much of those different runs can we afford with the money we've raised so far.
Okay, cool.
So this is going to be the bulk of the discussion, and I'll just kind of run through kind of where we are. Weston Nurseries, Terry at Weston Nurseries, talked to us last time about his designs. There was some miscommunication between me, him, and Steve. My understanding was that we needed to have enough space to have tractor or vehicle access to get through the natural play area to the other side. So what I heard him saying was that we would need to plan for either a tractor to move wood fiber from the gate to the 2 to 5 area, right? Somehow to get it from there to there, enough space, and potentially to be able to get a larger vehicle if they needed it from the gate to the 2 to 5 area.
They can't do that on the path, like the walkways.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'll get there. So the drawing to the right is the natural play area. The brown sort of area around the outside is the walkway, the concrete walkway, and then that interior beige line was sort of we called it the tractor zone, right? So that was going to give 10 feet of space in combination with the walkway
When was that from?
today.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I don't recognize this at all.
So I'm
when
just
I
kind of walking through sort of how
Oh,
everything
okay.
is, and because everything is kind of a moving target. So I shared that drawing with, and so if we did that and had to allow for that kind of a vehicle space, a buffer zone, right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't have allowed for the teardrop labyrinth that everybody seemed to like the most. So that's why Terry gave us the second option of this spiral, right, to accommodate for the thing. So I shared the spiral with Steve, and then just wanted to clarify that we did in fact have to have that buffer zone, and he said no, that was a miscommunication. So what we now have is we can use the full extent of the area inside the pathway. The pathway is enough room for I'm going to call the concrete walkway, I'm going to call that a walkway, and then the things that are inside the nature play area as pathways.
Okay.
So the tractor can travel on the
Walkways.
walkways, right? And then whatever we do, we have that space on the inside. The only thing we need to accommodate for is some sort of a pathway around the shade structure so that wheelchairs can kind of get in and out of there and join up. So there wouldn't necessarily be that squared off pathway around the shade structure, but at least to have access in and out of the shade structure and into the pathways.
Is the shade structure? The shade structure is a cement block underneath, right?
Correct, and it's got wooden piers.
But does it have is it like a sloping down? I assume it's gonna be flush with the surface around it?
I'm assuming so. I'm assuming that it's flush with not only the walkway, the concrete walkway, but also with the interior of the nature play area as well. So
Okay.
we're looking at basically one level. And that's a very good question because we'll talk about it, but there's gonna be a need to put grass in there, right? So they're gonna have to mow it. So whatever hardscape we put in there, that needs to be flush enough so that a mower can pass through and mow that area.
So the grass
as
is
well.
a temporary thing, right?
Phase 1, and we'll get
Okay.
into that in a sec.
Okay, no, I know I sent you an email about this and I don't remember seeing anything back but I was a little confused with the teardrop overlay on the shade structure, and I assume that's the smaller shade structure, or is that the bigger shade structure?
That's the smaller shade structure that's
So-
on there, so he'll have, so what he's looking for from us is confirmation that these are the elements that we'd like to see in there. This is the design that we like, and then he being Terry, then take this and orient this around the things we need to orient around. One other thing that came up a couple days ago was that we had pathways traveling through the tree protection zone, right? And plantings through the tree protection zone,
Under there. Okay.
right? So he marked that off. On the second one, you can see the the black circle in the lower bottom. So
Yeah.
that's the tree protection zone. But then in talking to him, and then I think I'd like to hear what Jim has to say about this.
Can you plant things around it?
My understanding is, and I'll let Jim answer this in a second, but my understanding is that you can plant stuff and that you can put pathways in, but they have to be constructed of permeable materials, and they have to be somewhat
Soft?
soft and not compacting to the roots. So you don't want to dig down into the root system. And then potentially try to find ways to make those pathways work in the thing. So Jim, did you want to share anything about that?
Yeah, I'm concerned about this. Designers look at it and they always think that they can plant underneath trees. But then they're done with the design and they're gone. And then 5 years later, the tree dies and the designers never put the two together. I've had some bad experiences with that. As far as the walkways are concerned, the devil is in the details. How it's designed and how it's installed. Experience tells me that I just don't think that's the place to go.
You're saying it can be done if it's done right.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is going to be a volunteer-led process, right?
I would assume that the pathways are going to be done by a contractor, either working. I would hope that they would be one that would working directly with the DPW as part of the entire.
Okay, because I
Project.
thought that might be part of our building aspect. Is that not true?
I think it's a little. I think it's a lot of work for a volunteer to take on. I think it's going to require a professional to, especially if you're looking at the teardrop gardens. I think we're definitely going to have to contract. That's going to have to be done by a contractor. The base so that thing on the bottom, the picture on the bottom is an example that Terry provided for the permeable hardscape, water permeable hardscape. So the way that he described it was it would be a layer of gravel, 1/2 inch to 3/8, I think, or 3/4 size gravel, and then sand, and then the stones, and then in between the stones would be some sort of a soft, moss or something, thyme or something that would spread in between and hold the pathways in place. So that's one option, and he was stressing, and he stressed that he didn't want us to get hung up on the types of hardscape or the structure or style of it, but that was just sort of the starting point. And then before I left, I heard from him that he suggested that, or he was thinking that we could actually build sort of mini boardwalks, right, through the tree protection zone that would mimic what's going on in the natural play area and in the nature trails. So that might actually be a nice way to tie into the nature trails as well, and then provide the protection that you're looking for to the roots, because you basically got three areas that are touching the ground.
Are they going to be ADA?
Yes. So he said that he has experience building those, that they are ADA compliant. That they basically it's the ramp up to them, and then you have to work some sort of a hardscape ramp to get them to the boardwalks.
So if this isn't part of the volunteer build, where are the funds coming for building this?
From what we're doing, from the fundraising, from this.
Okay, so that's on top of the,
Because this is all, because anybody that would give, the actual dedication of the money will have to be voted on by the Friends of Roberts Field Board. But the premier sponsorships are all for improvements to the playground. Also the general donations as well. So I think we'll have funds to work with. We'll have to discuss if we feel like the pathways. I don't know where the pathways are going to, the brick monies are going to end up, how those are going to end up shaking up. I mean, our first priority is going to be to fill the engraved park pathway, engraved walkway first. But those are all discussions. So. And who's to say that somebody there? So we got rough numbers, and we updated the catalog of things that people can sponsor. And so the sensory garden will be one of those things that somebody could potentially sponsor.
So do we have a rough number on what we're looking at for that?
He gave me a number of for the teardrop. It was there was 1,700 square feet. I used $10 a square foot and came up with like a $15,000 number in total. And that's just a wild guess. He'll give us, once we give him the information he's looking for to move the plan forward, he can give us a better.
Is that for phase 1 or phase?
That would be phase 1. That would be
So with no plants?
well, some plants in the center garden.
Okay.
So let's talk about that. So why phase 1 and why phase 2? Let's use the teardrop for an example, since that seems to be everyone's favorite. So the idea there is that we would have one continuous flat plane, hardscape, softscape, and then you'd have a center raised garden that would be the 5 senses sensory garden.
The
right?
dot in the middle is that?
No.
Sorry, just playing catch up.
So this is the center garden, right?
Okay.
This is the tree. That's just the center of the tree. All of this would be on the same plane.
Yep.
And the idea is that we could hand water the center garden, right, and get that one going. But the teardrop gardens are all going to require irrigation. So once irrigation is put in, then we could talk about phase 2, and then actually planting those teardrops. But for phase 1, we use it as hydroseeded. We hydroseed it and just do grass. And since it's all the same level, what we end up with is that labyrinth idea that we talked about
Forever.
2 committees ago. And then once phase 2 comes in, then we can fundraise or volunteer or whatever to fill in those teardrops with either bedded gardens, or we could raise them with 9-inch wide perimeter walled gardens that would be raised so that folks in wheelchairs and stuff could get to them.
How big is that center circle? Are we talking like a 3-foot?
I don't know.
Okay. I mean, we should be able, that's a 12 by 16 foot rectangle there, so that's gotta be, what, like a 6-foot?
I really don't know.
I'm going to give you a rough estimate of about 12 feet, scaling it off of this thing.
And so initially we could, and in talking to him, we had the idea there'd be some sort of a central focal point, and the focal point could be either they make a stainless steel gazing ball that we can buy for like $250, which is also on the sponsorship page now, or we could do a kinetic wind sculpture, and those you can buy, but they're really expensive. But you can also make them, or volunteers can make them. It requires metalsmithing and blacksmith. I reached out to the Garrison House, who has a blacksmith shop, to see if they'd have any interest in doing some kind of a 3-way kind of partnership between us and a scout and them to kind of construct this kinetic wind sculpture, which I found a YouTube video on DIY kinetic wind sculptures, and it's actually pretty cool. There's a picture I'll show you in a second. And the Garrison House, they're having a meeting tonight to talk about it with their board, but they seem excited about the idea and thought it might be fun. So there's at least the opportunity there if we all agree that it's something we wanted to pursue.
I like kinetic sculptures. My only question is it something that's gonna have moving parts that kids are gonna
right? It's gonna have to be safe.
have problems, yeah.
Yeah,
I just picture little fingers.
it's high, if you Google, DIY kinetic wind sculpture, it'll probably be one of the first things that comes up, and it's a single pole with, it's wrapped in I'll show you a picture, but it's wrapped in these little arms, and it seems like it can be made high enough to where little arms or even big arms can't reach it, because it's going to be in the center, surrounded by plants, and then by a wall. So it should be safe. That would have to be one of the goals. That would have to be one of the goals of. Well, these are for purchase.
Either one of you seen Twister? Like, I just picture those sculptures.
Yeah.
Okay, is that like, are we on the
Yeah, I
same
think-
page? Okay.
And it could be anything, and we could get to the design nuts and bolts of it.
Oh, yeah, I don't-
You know what I mean? We don't have to.
Yeah, that's just what I'm picturing, something like
I mean,
that.
at first I was thinking that it could be like long sheets of things that actually turned within something, but like I said, we can get into
I
the
think we
design
leave
of
that
it.
up to who's willing to donate their time, because we don't need to micromanage them.
We can work with them to make sure that
We
it's
should make
safe.
sure that it's safe and that everyone finds the design appealing.
Sure.
Right, and works with the nature theme.
So this is the one you're talking about?
Yes. And he goes through the step-by-step of how he built it, and it looks doable. I mean, if I had a heat foundry thing, I could heat the metal and do it myself, it seems like, but
I have a coworker who has one in his garage.
there you go. So I think we can find somebody
He's a
to do it.
mechanical engineer, so it kind of makes sense.
It needs you need somebody to heat the metal and then weld it. So I think it's doable. So that's that center garden. So basically it's some sort of a stone cemented wall so that there's stones that stay in place. And then the 5 sensory kind of plants to start off the 5 sensory garden, and then some sort of a central focal point that deals with the senses, either a reflective gazing ball or the kinetic wind sculpture or both, or whatever that ends up being.
Sculpture with really shiny things on it, so.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So like you could, whatever, you could do the design so that it has shiny stuff on it, so it, yeah.
Yeah. It's reflective and.
Right.
Could we just back up? I have a question about, you said how phase 2, like we would do grass, but the other beds required irrigation. How is that gonna work? How are they gonna run irrigation lines after the fact? Because don't they have to dig that out?
He's gonna put irrigation lines in now,
They're just not getting
Oh.
water,
and they'll dig
not
the,
from the other
They're not gonna
side.
be hooked
Just
up.
in that area, they're gonna do irrigation lines, but
Okay.
they're not gonna have anything to connect it to until the rest of the fields are.
Okay,
And
awesome.
he'll-
I was just concerned, like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yes,
He'll-
we
not gonna
we have
dig
same
the new
questions.
playground.
he'll
Yeah.
dig the well when they put the fields in, and then, but he'll have the lines run and ready to connect
Perfect.
in.
They're already
right.
plumbed in. I don't know if that's the
Yeah,
word,
it's-
but
he
okay.
used a
Yeah.
word that I don't remember what it was.
Okay.
But he's going to come up with a watering plan for the abutter tree thing, berm thing, and then we'll have to come up with a plan for whatever gardens we put into this. But
And the grass? Who's taking care of the grass?
I mean, the grass is going to be the same as it is in the other stuff too, so it's going to
Right.
be at risk, for
Okay.
watering. So
That's not in his plan and it's not.
I haven't talked to him about the plan for watering. I seem to remember him talking about that was going to be part of the run-in hoses, but I don't remember for sure.
Okay.
So let me go through the stuff on the left-hand side just real quick. We were trying to define what's the designable area for the area. We've defined the tractor access now can be for the walkways. The tree protection zone, we still need to kind of work through that. And then I mentioned that we have to have that shade structure access around the outside, the interior of the natural play area. I mentioned the central raised garden, the stone masonry wall, having sensory plants, potentially having gazing ball and the kinetic sculpture. The hardscape pathways, Terry's focus is that, and reiterates that he wants it to be some sort of an interesting design that pulls people into the area. He wants to have 3 access points around the natural area, at least 3 access points, and then
Yeah, that's one thing I like about the spiral thing, where it really kind of gives you a multitude of interesting access points where at least the way it's done there, where it's kind of like, oh, and you're suddenly in this path and
Right.
on this trip.
And then for the hardscape, it could be anywhere from a low cost pack or granite fines. If I can never,
Crusher fines.
I can never get that right. A low cost crusher fine with a metal edging to keep it separated from the turf or beds, the teardrops. We could talk about scrapping the idea of running the bricks on the pathway and using the bricks for the hardscape in here. To say that that's sort of the highest end of, to use bricks would be the highest end of the cost scale. But
Didn't he talk about having like different path types, like the sensory aspect of the different path types with the
yes,
pictures he had with the different?
so his thought was that there would be one section of the hardscape, either potentially one of the outer bands being sort of the sensory path that would be a mix of different. It could be like a section could be the animal prints, and then a section could be cobblestone, and a section could be pebbles, and it would just be it would just kind of shift. So it would be a part of it, but then everything else would sort of be one type of hardscape.
It's probably easier to do. It's probably going to look weirder, but it's probably going to be easier to do that way.
Versus doing the whole thing different.
Well, it's going to be one path, as long as it's going to lose symmetry having one path to, but you could do like kind of the ring around the center ring be the
Right. Or one maybe thing leading up, maybe one arm
fin,
or something,
yeah.
or maybe one arm and another arm that connects out. But
Yeah.
the sense that I got was that once we are able to kind of commit to a direction on one of these things, that he'll make those things fit and then find the place to put the sensory path. That's definitely part of it.
Yeah, I mean, the way it's kind of hard to tell since I know he hasn't figured out exactly how to put that circle thing sort of down in there and still take into account the shade structure. But I'm trying to figure out, do we care if it's the same as the walkway material, or do we want it to not be the same as the walkway material? Do we know what the walkway material is?
We don't know yet. I heard Steve saying that it was going to be either concrete or granite, but he was leaning towards concrete. So I'm assuming that it's going to be concrete.
Okay, so it's not going to be pressure fines.
It's going to be either crusher fines. I'm sorry, the granite crusher fines. It's going to either be crusher fines
It's
or
marble.
or concrete.
It's marble tiles.
I was
Yeah.
going to say, I'm picturing like countertops.
I knew what he meant, so it didn't.
I was
just
trying to figure out if that's
Because crusher fines is crushed granite, right?
Yeah.
That's why I keep
Right.
getting them mixed up.
right.
But yeah, so it's going to be
Okay.
either those two, but I think that it's going to be concrete.
Okay. Because I kind of like the idea of crusher fines being more natural.
Right.
So, if the rest of that's concrete, then crusher fines as the inner things feels kind of like good, fine delineation where this is the more natural.
And it matches the interior walking path, right? So it's got that consistency there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think I'm with you. I guess the only downside to it that I heard from Terry was that it's going to require surfacing more often because when they mow it, it's going to get sucked up and blown out. So it's going to be there'll be more maintenance involved if it's crusher fines, but I'm with you. I feel like it delivers more on the natural end of the.
Yeah. I certainly would not want concrete in there,
Okay.
personally. In the natural scape area, I don't see that as,
Because then it becomes kind of
yeah.
it's the walkways kind of
Right.
coming in.
It's like
sort
a
of.
walkway minor or something. I don't know.
Jim.
I've been looking at that, and Sandy might have a better idea, but I'm looking at that as a tremendous amount of maintenance that's going to be required to keep the weeds down.
How do you figure the weeds?
Well, you've got a lot of space in there. You're not gonna use pesticides, so it's all hand pull. And you got, what, 12, he
It's-
says 15,000 square feet.
It's grass like the rest of the grass.
1,500 square feet. But it starts out grass, but I think the goal is to go more towards perennials. At least that was what,
Well,
Okay, so what do you,
well, I'm looking at it, if the end result is to have it in perennials, there's a tremendous amount of maintenance that's going to be required. And remember, when this whole process started, one of the main things that people had problems with the old Roberts Field was no maintenance.
right. Yeah, I mean, I think before we would move to phase two, we'd have to find a group that would be willing to maintain those 6 teardrop gardens and 7th center garden as well. The mowing would take care of the weeds for phase one, but I hear what you're saying about phase two. It's going to be a lot. But if they're perennials, it comes down to, I think, 2, maybe 3 cleanings a year, right, to get the weeds and stuff out, and then
Well, I don't know, everybody has their own level of what's acceptable.
right.
And so that's actually for you folks to decide what's acceptable and what's not.
Right.
But,
yeah,
it's more of a problem, I think, because I've been involved in this stuff where, you know, you put something in and like topsy, it grows. 1 minute it's fine and 2 weeks later, oh my God.
so you suggesting something different, or?
Well, actually, I'm suggesting scale back way big on this garden. Of course,
To what?
my idea of protecting the tree. But and I've also got a thought of, what's that if he could deliver a perspective, I think it would make a lot of difference too. Right now, you look at it and it looks fine because you're the pigeon. But because you're flying overhead, you're looking down and it looks good. What does it look like from the side?
Yeah, well, we'll get
Will it
there.
show up?
Right.
Will what show up?
The garden,
I
you're looking at a design there
yeah, I have,
that looks fine from above. What is it gonna look like when you're looking at it from the side?
I think it's gonna look pretty cool. I mean, I have a pretty good 3-dimensional,
Okay, well,
but and he said it's kind of based on this other one, that another park that has a very similar path, and everyone really appreciates it.
But maintenance would be one of the things that I would be quite concerned about.
Yeah,
Well, there's a maintenance plan as part of what
Yeah, we'll
that's
talk about
an
it.
integral part of what we have to do.
I think we're all in agreement that it's not gonna move on to phase two until, well, first off, we've gotten commitment from Sandy, and I think the Friends of Roberts Field is gonna back that up with maintaining the interior garden and the satellite butterfly garden. So those two, there's commitments for maintenance on those, right? To move into phase two, you're right, there's gonna have to be some kind of a commitment from a longstanding organization that would be willing to do those minimum two times a year cleanings of the 6 teardrop gardens to make sure that they're maintained properly. And I'm confident that we'll get some kind of a rendering view of it once we can commit to sort of a style of design. I think we'll be able to get more detail on what it'll look like from the ground level. But I hear what you're saying. I do hear what you're saying.
Sandy, do you have a thought on how much maintenance?
Depending on what you plant, if you put in really good soil, okay, which is gonna give the plant a good root system, and it's watered properly, and you don't get a lot of seed heads blowing in from another field, or from dandelions, you know, like that, when they blow in, they always pop up. It should be low maintenance. If you put in a lot of herbs, herbs tend to flower, and you don't want them to flower, so there would be a lot of deadheading, which, you know, anybody can go in there and you can pinch it off to make it bushier. If kids are gonna be pulling the leaves to smell anyhow, you know, they might like the flowers.
So why don't we want it to flower? I just don't know enough about.
Oh, yeah.
say you wanna put it in cement,
Yeah,
herbs will flower, because that's where they form the seeds, most form the seeds. so
Right.
They will reseed. If you do put mint in, it's very invasive, I would try to put it in a pot. in the
Yes.
jug, but that's down the line, so anyhow. Like lavender is beautiful.
right, I guess I'm just trying to figure out why we don't want flowers. I don't,
Oh, flowers are fine.
I mean, why
It's
we
the
don't want them to flower.
seeds.
We
Oh,
don't,
no, flowers you do, but herbs, it puts an end to their life, kind of.
okay,
If you have, catmint or something, thyme, rosemary.
Mhm.
things
so they
like
kind of feel like they've done their bit in life and then they're
that.
done.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
If you
Alright.
keep deadheading them, like she said, then they start to bush and kind of like
Oh,
branch out, as
okay.
opposed to just grow tall and say, "Ooh, I'm done. I
Right.
made my flower at the top."
I have procreated and we are done with this,
Most herbs are only annual anyhow.
Right,
There are some that are perennial, but I think the ones going out there for the sensory, part of it will be the annuals, and those will need to be, kept deadheaded to keep the flowers off, just so you can get the bushier plants.
So to recap, we need to make sure that we've got, that we've looked at maintenance. We need to make sure that we have a commitment to having it maintained. We need to make sure that we have our watering needs addressed and a plan in place for that. And that we are doing justice to the tree and helping it, not hurting it. Is there anything else?
Thought. He's gonna hydroseed it, no watering.
Right, the whole thing's gonna be hydroseeded, so there's gonna have to be some kind of a watering plan. They're gonna have to put some kind of a watering plan in place, or otherwise everything's gonna die, all the grass is gonna die.
Okay.
I mean, that's what we were just talking about with Steve, and someone has to figure out the.
Somebody
water.
it has to be planned in if you're gonna do it to water it.
Correct.
I don't know
Yes.
if the town has these aluminum irrigation pipes that can be moved around or whatever.
I don't know, but I think that's gonna be in Steve's boat, given
we'll-
that they're doing the rest of the grass anyway, so.
And I'll add that to the watering plan for the grass and for the, a butter berm and, the center and, butterfly garden I'll ask him about that, and I'll bring an update to the next
A lot of
meeting.
this grass has to be watered before the berm goes in.
Okay, so I'll ask him about a watering plan for that.
What kind of a plan does he have for the sensory garden? Is it gonna be sprinkle? Is it gonna be trickle? Is it gonna be, is he given any thought to what's going on there?
Okay, so you're talking about the actual lines that he's running,
Yeah.
the irrigation lines?
How he-
Okay,
How he's gonna build it in, or set
Okay.
it up.
so phase 1 and phase 2, okay. And then I mentioned the phase 1, the teardrops or the spiral, green spiral would be grass, right? And then phase 2 would be the sensory plants once the irrigation was established. The satellite butterfly garden, we talked about the placement of that up above the fence line. Weston has agreed to donate the plants for that, so that's about a $1,000 gift.
That's nice.
It's awesome.
Very nice, it's very awesome. And then we could, if we had the volunteer interest, we could tie the two gardens together and do a separate, maybe smaller or different type of, or maybe the same one, kinetic sculpture in the butterfly garden, or do another gazing ball, or do a gazing ball there, whatever. We could put some kind of an artistic touch to tie the gardens together, so it draws the eyes over towards it.
I love gazing balls, but I do worry about them. I mean, I used to live on Powers Road, and I had gardens way off the road, and kids came in and took my balls and smashed them. So I don't know why kids do what they do, but somehow,
Well, they're stainless steel, right? So it wouldn't be glass.
Yeah.
And they'd have to be mounted securely, like bolted into some kind of a structure to make sure that they can't get lifted and
Yeah.
pushed. So I think anything we put in this area, we're gonna have to really double down on safety and security and make sure that stuff is, unmovable, pretty much.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's my biggest concern is the vandalism aspect.
Right.
Is there a art vote, like, program in the VOTEC or anything where people might be doing sculpture or want to do,
It's a
like, students in high school?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I reached out to the our rep that sits on the Neshoba Tech school committee, and he's going to get in touch with Neshoba Tech with their car thing, like in the welders, you know, and see if there's any interest there. And I don't know.
Okay, I was actually thinking of like more art students.
I don't know anybody at CHS. Well, he's going to reach out to Neshoba Tech, so at least we have Neshoba Tech
Yeah.
contacted. I don't know anybody at CHS, so if anybody knows someone there or someone at CHS that we could reach out to, I could always reach out
I was
to.
gonna say, is there no art program at Neshoba Tech? Do they not?
No, probably not.
I think no. They have like design and stuff for sure.
What
but,
are you looking for?
Well, I'm just thinking that if we need someone to do, if we're looking for someone to do a sculpture, there might be a high school art type.
That
person.
falls under art. I think that falls under something
Well,
else.
let's take advantage of our broadcast time, right? So, like anybody out there that knows anybody who might have an interest in creating a welded cast iron, sturdy sculpture, please contact us at info@robertsfield.org, and we would love to talk to you. Or if anybody has any contacts at the Chelmsford High School or any art schools or even welding shops around town that, they could execute on this kind of a thing too. It's going to be something that we can give named recognition to on our sponsor signs, because it is going to be a significant piece. So, you'll get the presence from that as well. So, recognition from that. But I think all those are great ideas to reach out to people to try and find. I think scouts are a great opportunity because they can kind of take that ball and run with it if they can find. They can kind of contact their schools and stuff and see if there's people that can do it. So, and we put a posting on Facebook saying that this was a possibility, that if anybody was interested to get in touch with us. And then I contacted one of the regional scout leaders who's willing to distribute a flyer that has that information as well. So we'll try to beat the bushes and see if we can't find people that are into it. We have more that we'll probably come back to, but are there any other considerations or things, or what are the feelings? What kind of feelings do you guys have on one design or the other, or moving this forward with
One
Terry?
design.
Spiral or teardrops?
I'm all for the teardrops. I think the spiral, you end up with a dead end, and I think the teardrop increases the chance of flow and meandering and kids running through, as opposed to a spiral, which kind of gets you to the end and then drops you.
Yeah, my biggest concern I would have to say is maintenance. While I love all of it, I'm just super concerned about how it's going to be maintained long term. So as long as, we have those in place before we proceed, I would go teardrop.
Have you reached out to any garden clubs? There's several in town.
Yes, and we have not gotten any positive responses about long-term maintenance for any of the gardens at Roberts Field or Friendship Park from a garden club yet.
So we'll do all of that.
Thank you.
They have their hands full. They've got a lot. Most of the garden clubs have, especially the Chelmsford Garden Club has the big garden in the center, and then lots of other smaller gardens all around. So it's no slight intended to them whatsoever. It's just they've already got their things, but. So moving forward with Terry, we should move forward with the teardrop design. You guys are comfortable with the phased approach and the phase one, including the central rounded garden with plants and some sort of a visual thing like the kinetic sculpture
Sounds good
or
to me.
steel ball or both?
Sounds good.
Yeah, I guess so, if I had to choose between the two,
Between,
between those two up
Oh.
there. Yeah.
And so if I get Terry to come back with a more positioned design around the elements that we've talked about, the larger shade structure, and then the access points around the shade structure, the pathway around it to make sure people can come in and out of it, and then it sort of all fits and flows. And then 3 points.
and the tree.
And then works with the tree and either using the hardscape permeable stuff in the protection zone, or potentially using the boardwalks, as long as it's ADA compliant. And I asked him that, and his response was that everything's going to be ADA compliant. One thing we didn't talk about was, and there's a picture coming up with this, but we could do natural stone seating for benches in this area that would kind of tie into the natural part of it. And his recommendation was that we would do three stone benches, and I have a picture of a sample of something like that. I think that's everything we talked about.
I'm gonna go off the deep end here for just a second. Bear with me. Thinking about the maintenance thing and how to try to balance that with what we want. Would it be possible somehow, looking at this, it almost looks right like a wheel? Instead of having all these paths and smaller things to, have a central thing with like 4 paths leading into the central area, then you have bigger areas to mow, and then if it doesn't get planted, the grass is there, and a family could sit in the grass instead of under the shade and have a bigger space. It's hard, again, with scale. I
guess
just
what's your
struggle with
concern
that. I'm just concerned that DPW, like, it's gonna be with the grass alone, like how they're gonna handle that, and then are we ever gonna like be able to move on to phase 2? And so thinking about if we got stuck in phase 1, because that could be a real possibility, are we left with something? I don't know how much I love that if you're truly stuck in phase 1 and it is only ever grass. Then it feels
I can't imagine that it'd
weird
be
to me.
really hard to mow the teardrops compared to
Compared to like a big area. I don't know. I was just
well,
thinking
I
in
don't
terms
think
of
you're
a
gonna get a
kid playing.
substantially bigger area, and I think the idea was
I love our idea. I'm just trying to, like I said, try to throw something out there that might balance it better, but we don't have to go down there at all.
So I think what I'm hearing you say is that you're wondering if we could do larger green spaces and fewer pathways?
Yeah. I don't know. It feels very pathy to me.
so
In terms of like, from a maintenance perspective, not from what I would do at my own house, like given, my own resources. If you just had essentially like a wagon wheel spoke thing, and in the center being that garden.
We've talked about spokes, and there's more of an organic feel to the
Absolutely.
this. But if you wanted to do something more like what you're talking about, if you had 3 teardrops, if you combined each of the teardrops with one other teardrop, and you had 3 teardrops, and then you had the pathways on that, you could, maybe that would be.
I went down that road with him of changing the number of teardrops. I actually was trying to get him to do 5 teardrops to tie in with the idea of 5 senses.
No.
And he was very adamant about saying that,
I'm not a designer. That's why it's easy
Yeah,
for me to
and-
say like a wagon wheel.
So I imagine 5 might be hard because of the odd.
I'll be happy to ask him about the
Because I could see having, if you did
3 instead of
if you did 3
6.
instead of 6, then you'd have,
You have 3 fewer paths.
you'd have 3 fewer paths. You'd have one. It would. I could see that working together, where you could still maximize your teardrop and your flow, and you'd still have.
So can I ask him for 2 options then? So an option as it stands like this, and then an option with 3 teardrops and 3 paths, and so that we can see, and then just to get, because a lot of the discussion, or like when it gets into that point, is I and I don't want this to come across as a negative, but the responses are generally, you have to trust me on this, right? You know, like,
Yeah.
he's got that designer thing
Sure.
going.
Right, and obviously he has a lot more experience with how things come out aesthetically and whatever, and it's hard to, I mean, the scale of this is hard to, I can picture what it would look like from the side, but I can't quite get the scale to make sense. And I guess what keeps killing me is that you have this superimposed over the tree and the shade structure right now, which obviously is not going to happen because those are immovable objects. So I'm having a hard time seeing how he's going to wrap them around those. So I think I just, but I mean.
So I'll ask him for two options then. So an option as is, positioned around the structures that are the immovable stuff, the shade structure in the tree. And then I'll ask him for a second option, and that would be 3 gardens and 3 paths on that interior spin. And then if he absolutely hates that idea, to come and tell us why. Is that fair?
That works. That doesn't form any sort of weird symbol, right? I'm just trying to.
Okay, yeah, good call. I don't know.
I'm just trying to picture. I mean, you wouldn't want to do 4 paths, but 3 I think would be
Like a
okay.
swastika or something?
Exactly.
Right.
I'm going. I think 3 paths is probably fine. And
He said, I love it. I just want to make sure that, again, if we get stuck in phase 1, that then we're still happy with
Right.
it, and that DPW is really on board with the
Right.
plan and has a plan, because if we have something that they're not really interested in maintaining, it really doesn't matter.
Right. I mean, the good news is if we, I think, from my perspective, if we get stuck in phase 1 and it's just grass, that worst case, it just gets mowed with everything else, and it still,
Right.
it still stays the labyrinth, which is something that we've been talking about, you know, because
For
it's still
committees.
it's still that thing that, and I think that's one of the
Right.
benefits of having the more
The multitude
paths
of
than
paths.
not, because it
Right.
kind of gives you the thing to go in and out and run in
Right.
and out of, and that
All
kind
right.
of thing. So I'll give him, I'll ask him for the 2 options, right? And then the things that we've talked about in terms of being kind to the trees, the design elements that we'll go over again in a minute, and I think that's it. Jim?
Okay.
Any chance you could ask him, could he give us a quick perspective?
Yes, I think once he's able to kind of do his positioning and stuff, I think I'll ask him. I think, you know, I don't want to overburden him with
Right.
producing something
Some
that,
of them can bang a perspective out in 10 minutes, and other people have a real problem with it. It all depends on the person.
but I'll ask.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on Sandy?
What's under that? Is that concrete or is there gonna be grass under there? The
Under what?
The garden, the sensory garden. Is that, when I go walking through that, am I walking on grass, am I walking on concrete?
you're talking about the pathways?
Yes.
The gray stuff, we don't know yet. So
Probably crusher fine seems like a reasonable
Okay.
assessment.
it could be crusher fines, it could be
I
cobblestone.
just didn't, I tainted the idea of having to have a mower go in there, that's the only thing I was thinking about, so.
Yeah, a mower's definitely gonna have to go through there regularly, every 2 weeks. A mower's gonna have to go on top of
The
everything.
gardens,
So
Well, the rest
phase,
of it's not going to be gardens until phase 2, right?
Right,
Only
right.
only the center
Okay.
circle is going to be a garden. So it's yes.
so the center garden is raised and that's a bed, right? Phase 1, everything else is hardscape and then turf.
okay, so it's raised.
And the center garden is raised, right? So phase 2 would be those garden beds become plants, and at that point they either become plants in a low bed or they get raised up to a higher bed.
And even when I guess one thing I keep thinking of, I don't want this to end up going towards like English garden sort of
Right.
thing. I want it to feel more natural. So the more I'm looking at this, the more I'm like, this is kind of like Versailles is not the right thing, but I'm thinking of the structure of like European gardens and stuff. I don't think that's really,
Right.
we want it to have more of an organic feel, is my 2 cents.
And I'm with you, because he actually showed me a picture of like a garden sculpture in the satellite butterfly garden that was literally like a brass butterfly thing, and to me, that just kind of made the hairs on my neck stand up. It's not like,
Well, and that's why I like it more than with the curves and that's more as opposed to having straight lines out. But
I think it delivers on the natural play area because of the pathways. It's got the visual thing to draw people into it. We didn't talk about, there'd be a sign here that would define sort of the natural play area placed somewhere in here. There'd be the Chelmsford Mass Rocks container somewhere in here. Maybe that would be in the center area for phase one, and that could be constructed out of a metal kind of a partitioned off area. And then the natural stones too, I think would help. The natural seating stone thing would help. And I'll show you a picture of something that I found online that might work for that.
I'm curious why you'd go towards a metal structure for this stone as opposed to like a whiskey barrel type thing.
In my mind, at least, that whiskey barrel thing is a little homeownery, and I think we're trying to keep wood and stuff out of the playground from a maintenance standpoint. So the metal would last forever, right? If it was copper, just like a small copper wall inside that circular thing, and then with some sort of a colored stone or stone on the base that the stones can
We're
sit
talking
on
about a
top
wooden
of.
boardwalk, so I thought we were talking about.
That's a good point, yeah.
I'm thinking nature. I think wood and stone and not metal.
That's at least what Terry was sharing with me, that's where he was going, that it would be sort of a partitioned off area. And we can get into the specifics of that stuff down the road, once we get the big piece sort of set.
Okay.
Good?
Yep.
Anything else? Anything else, anybody? These updates I do have. So these are the designs of the tables and benches that Steve provided for me.
What happened to the whole wooden?
So this is the one that he and Nick picked out, and they picked out metal because of the maintenance, the long-term maintenance of it. They're not opposed to the wooden thing, and the previous wood and steel benches that were there before are still in the possession of DPW, and they're available for repurposing. What it would require is that the scouts would have to put all new wood and then paint. Their thoughts behind the thoughts that he shared with me was that using the metal would tie in better with the these other benches and tables, and then these tables actually are pretty close to what's already there on the other side of the park. But there's the option, right? So depending on where I guess the Girl Scouts want to go and where how much of a design input we want to put into it, that's
I
where
don't know.
they are.
I thought we'd had I don't know how many meetings where we discussed them and we're like, we'll do wooden benches, and then
Wooden benches I know the discussion was wooden benches for the buddy bench,
it was
but
also
not for the others. That wasn't because I've always thought that we should do metal to match the tables. I don't know that we talked about that, but that's just my understanding. I'm not saying I'm right.
I'm pretty sure that when the one I remember specifically was when we were talking, when you were on the phone and Marcus and I were sitting in the other room. So I
think the metal from a maintenance standpoint offers the DPW the less problems. Right?
Have they ever had to do maintenance on the ones that were there? Did
No,
ever
but they
do
don't
maintenance
look
on
the
them?
same as, they don't look as new as the metal stuff. I mean, I'll give you a good, for example, the picnic table, right? The one that we put over by the fire station. That tree literally fell right on top of it, and we moved the tree off and it's fine. You know what I mean? Whereas if it was wood, I don't think it would have made it. So
Okay, it's one of the many, many places where it just feels like it's natural theme, but it doesn't feel very natural to me, so.
Did you have any thoughts, Danielle?
No,
Anybody else have any thoughts on?
I've seen that exact buddy bench. It's at the Carlisle Public School. So, I mean, it's fine.
Do you want to give the scouts the opportunity? I think it would, I mean, obviously you can spell out buddy bench easier in this. Do you want to give them the option of creating their own or purchasing the prefab one that the DPW is recommending?
I'd like to give them that option if DPW is okay with it. It's their project, so I think they should have some choice about it. You know, if they want to go grab the old wooden ones, and as long as DPW is okay with it, like, good for them. If they don't, that's fine too.
Okay. You have any thoughts on that, Elizabeth?
I'm not a fan. And we had this conversation multiple times about it being a wooden bench, and I'm not a fan of those metal ones, but that's.
Are they gonna stay hot? Metal benches? Hot.
They're covered in vinyl, and they're that web
Right.
stuff, so they really don't hold heat very much.
It's nice it probably would, after a rain, it would be drier, in general. It wouldn't hold a surface of water, maybe
And-
like a wood one.
Yeah, it doesn't mold either. The wooden stuff tends to kind of mold sometimes.
The only problem I have with I'm just being silly, but the picnic ones is inevitably I always spill a drink right through one of my pants.
Yes.
So, I can avoid that.
Yep.
Or ice cream as it melts.
Or ice
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Well,
Or
there
something
won't
like
be an
when-
ice cream stand or a taco truck there like
Right.
all the Girl Scouts want.
I do want to say that my understanding was that on the shade structure, they were going to use the kind that were on a pier that were actually into the concrete, but they've decided to go with this legged version. And what they'll do is they'll bolt those legs into the concrete base of the shade structure. So it'll look like these, not like the ones that they have at Harmony Park, which are the ones that are on the pole.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So this way, if something happens to one of these, they can unbolt it, take it off, and put a new one in. Versus the other ones, they would have to actually pretty much tear up the concrete
Right.
paddock
Smart.
to get it in.
Yep. They learned.
And the ones that they're choosing are, I asked him specifically, and they said that yes, they're the roll-up version for the wheelchairs. So, want me to take any action with that at all? Just to give the
think
Girl
we
Scout
need to-
troops the option?
I mean, I think we need to be able to give them the green light on something. So, I mean, I hate bringing it to a vote, but I mean,
we've already, I'm getting frustrated with the number of things which we have the same conversations about. I could be wrong, but I think I'm the only person who's been at every single meeting, and I'm getting a little frustrated with having the same conversations months later with different people and then voting for something different. So I just.
Well, it changes. Everything. I mean, the things all kind of. It's a sort of a moving target. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but there's
Some of
like
it is, and
you're
some
gonna
of it's
have
just.
a lot of frustration in about 5 minutes when we talk about the signage plan too. But it's a moving target. I mean, we have to kind of make accommodations for these things.
There's definitely things you need to make accommodations for. There's other things where it's like, no, there's different people here tonight, so now we're voting differently. So that's just what it is. If I'm the only person who still wanted wood benching who's here tonight, then I guess it doesn't matter.
Okay, so I'll get in contact with the Harrington Girl Scout troop leader and let them know that they'll basically have a choice of either doing the metal bench or the wooden bench, and then if they want to go with the wooden bench, I'll get them in touch with Steve, and they'll have to coordinate how to get that and get the wood and get those things repurposed and get that project moving.
I'm hopeful they'll choose the wooden one because it's a little more hands-on. Then a check.
Yeah, they're daisies though, so I don't know how much,
How old are
They're
daisies?
6.
Oh, I see. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
it's little
I
hands.
think it's gonna be like more of a.
It might be their
parents-
mommies
Yeah, I don't hear
and
you.
daddies
But it's-
that
It's
help,
paint.
and then they can put their
Right.
handprint on
Right.
it. That's
And
a
that's-
6-year-old.
And that's what we've kind of talked about, and that's, I don't know, as I said, we've had conversations there apparently in the past, so.
Well, I'll say this, that the wooden benches that were there before, especially the ones in the back of the playground, were like the grossest things ever. I mean, the stuff that I would find on them and under them was just disgusting. So to me, metal seems a little more clean, I guess. I don't know, because it kind of
Well,
washes
it's
off.
going to be up to them, so they're going to choose, and
Right.
they're going to go
Yeah, yeah.
forward.
Right.
Is there, not to make it more, even more choices, but is there somewhere in the middle you guys could end up at like one of these, you know, they have those hybrid ones that are sort of metal on the side and then what's the word, you know, composite wood.
Right, and I thought we talked about possibly doing,
It has the look of wood, but the maintenance free-ish, you know.
I mean,
so
if you want to take that on with Steve, I would encourage you to, to contact him and do that exploration to find, if there's a different option, bench or table out there that you have in mind, I would encourage you to talk to
yeah,
him about
Steve
it.
was there the night that we were talking about the benches, so I feel like we're just going in circles, I
Okay.
guess.
So I'll give Harrington the option of the two. I did post online looking for a cost estimate for the covered bridge reconstruction, and I was very happy to find a volunteer that was willing to not only give us a estimate, but was willing to provide the labor to actually build it. So we've got someone who's volunteered Heritage Construction, who is working on getting the cost estimate together now, but more importantly, they're providing the labor to
Oh,
do it.
wow, so it's an actual, like,
They're for real.
Company.
It's a builder, right?
Yes.
that's
Like,
awesome.
and they have
Yeah.
like,
So
design
we
guides.
have very
and
solid, like, feelings that it will be solid at the
it will be
end.
done and done well. The direction, and I'll share with you guys, just to make sure that I've covered off on everything, but basically the direction was to rebuild the entryway the way that it was without those A-frame supports on the side, and to make it as, to still have the interior seating and to have the openness of the walls, but to do it without those A-frame supports on the side. You know what I'm talking about?
Awesome.
So
Super psyched.
I assume they're gonna be on our sponsor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and then we'll work on the fundraising for it. So once I get, I've actually put it on the catalog, but we'll have to work on the fundraising for that part of it as well. And the same thing with the signage kiosk thing too. I think he's going to provide us with a cost for that, and we'll hopefully find a scout that'll take that on. And those projects are going to be in that flyer that we're going to distribute to the scout leaders as well. So
So, sorry, do we have an estimate for the cost of the bridge now?
He's
No, not
working
yet.
Oh,
on it.
Okay.
I don't think I put one on there. No, I didn't put one on there yet.
But do we have a ballpark?
Not really, because I have no idea what those, how much wood goes into it. I checked with Steve to see what type of wood we should use. And the shade structure is gonna be it's gonna be non-treated wood, so they're gonna actually stain it. And he suggested that the entryway be made of pressure-treated wood with cedar shingles.
Pressure
Wood
treated wood is
wood
not-
shingles, shingles match the previous one. Do you not wanna do pressure-treated wood?
Well, I don't know what the options are for pressure treated wood, but pressure treated wood in general is historically has had arsenic and other things.
No
Yeah.
longer though. They don't make it, I don't believe, with
Right.
arsenic anymore.
Got a new formulation.
So my only question is whatever is being used is
Safe for kids?
safe
Okay,
and for runoff and, right,
right.
so.
And I think that it'll age, it'll age similar to what, I think the other one was pressure treated as well. I think that's why it kind of had that brownish, blackish look. It all ages the same way. But whatever that ends up being built out of, we should probably build the sign kiosk so that the two age similarly and look consistent.
So we wouldn't wanna use cedar for the whole thing.
We could, it's gonna raise the cost.
Yeah,
We can get a cost for that. I can ask him for a cost if you'd like to see what that would be.
I'd be curious.
Okay. Any other questions on these? This changed only a little bit in that we've added that the walkways are going to be installed ideally the week of June 11th. So that's the only change to this. So the equipment gets built the second and third, and then the walkways and stuff would go in. And my goal would be, I would think, to try to get any hardscape that we do with the natural play area to be done at that same time. And the same thing with the engraved bricks. So the goal would be to have everything in place then. And that would be, moving towards, that gives that week to get it done, and then the following week, and then that Saturday is the 23rd.
Are we
So-
thinking like a 10 o'clock, sorry?
Oh, I'm just worried about Mother Nature. She's been really mean.
Yeah, it's all gonna be a
Stop.
moving target,
I know,
right?
yeah.
So it's,
I mean, there's nothing we can do about it, I know. I'm just saying a little prayer now.
So for the grand opening, thinking like a 10 a.m. opening?
I don't know, I guess, I don't know what time is that like the family-friendly time?
I think
It's
that's-
pretty family friendly. We plan a lot of our events that way because it tends to hit the
Like,
most
It's
age
not
ranges.
a nap time yet, and
I mean, it depends on the age of your kids. You're never going to please everybody, but we find 10 a.m. start times to be pretty good.
Okay, any questions, anybody? Signage. So there's those A-frame things I was talking about on the original entryway. See those boards that are slanted boards on the sides, each side? So I would hope that they'd be able to design it so that it was sturdy enough that they wouldn't have to use those.
did I hear those were added after the fact before?
I wasn't able to find out. I asked Kevin, who was the original builder, and I didn't get a response back. So I assume that they weren't. To me, it looks like it was added afterwards, that they weren't part of the original build, that they were added afterwards. But I don't know. There's the kiosk that we talked about with sort of the combination seating kiosk thing. I also want to say that I reached out to my sign vendor to get an idea of cost for the Friendship Park sign on the entryway, and he's going to give back to me with some costs for that. He was suggesting that Friendship Park sign should be a little different than the other stuff that we've talked about, and that it would be kind of carved, so it would be all solid green material, and then the Friendship Park and the design stuff is sort of etched out, and then it's filled in with the gold and white.
Oh, you're talking about the one on the covered bridge?
Yes,
Yeah, I'm trying to
yes,
follow.
sorry.
Okay, yep.
Okay.
I was back
Gotcha.
on that.
Nope,
sorry.
that's okay.
For the kiosk, so there's a lot of sign opportunities here. We could put a. This one actually has a carved sign here, right? We could make this sort of the same kind of sign material as either this would be or this, so you get another opportunity to put branding, right? Friendship Park or whatever that would be. And then you still have this opportunity here for the story and the rules and all that stuff.
And a wooden bench that's apparently going to get very disgusting.
Well, good thing to call. So, in going through all this corporate sponsorship stuff, and then in thinking this through, we talked about that existing stone marker with the sponsor thing that the first people put together, right? And I confirmed with Steve that is movable. So they can move it. So what I would actually suggest, after thinking about this and talking through this, is that we do almost a duplicate of that for our sponsors, right? So that way, and then we have those two sort of together,
Do we
right?
have another appropriately sized rock?
We'd have to get one, right? We'd have to get that, and then we'd have to get stone benches and all this other
Are we
stuff.
going to be able to get an engraved, whatever the metal, I mean,
The plaque is about $1,200 to $1,500. The Chelmsford Garden Club did one for their garden in the center, and it cost about, just the plaque part cost about $1,200 to $1,500 to have that made.
And what's the time frame for getting it made?
I don't know. I didn't start reaching out on that, but it's all, if it's not there for the grand opening, then they'll have some sort of a temporary thing, and then we'll have its space, right?
And people understand too, after going to the grand opening of Castle in the Trees, nobody was disappointed that like, oh my God, your kiosk isn't complete on the first day. Like, they know that, things come afterwards, so it's okay.
And from my perspective, and it's just my perspective, but it feels like to me if you look at that sign now, if you go out and look at the engraved bronze sign now, it looks brand new. I mean, it's a nice sign. Mm-hmm. To me, that's a lot more substantial than for the, I'm sorry, I'm jumping all over the place. For the sign kiosk
Mm-hmm.
with the seating, the type of printing that we could do, this is PVC, this is a sample of PVC printing, right? So just to give you an idea of what it looks like. So that's weatherproof, UV resistant. My sign guy says that it'll last, I couldn't get him to commit to a number of years, but it was forever, basically, is what he was saying. And that's that $8 a square foot cost. But from this, you can kind of get a sense of what the reproduction quality is in the printing.
Yeah.
And
It's good.
it's,
Yeah.
so we could do, signs like this on the front, and then on the back, we could do just the bulletin board thing. And then have the sponsored rock next to the other sponsor rock, and then have sort of a interesting, however it gets positioned.
Put a sponsor rock on either side of the bench.
Whatever that appealing positioning of that is, and then in relation to the entryway, and then the thing. I think we probably would want to define where those things go once we have the stuff in place, so you can actually walk and sort of see, you know what I mean?
See what the other rock looks like that we find.
Right.
So, who's going to be on the sponsor rock? Is it just corporate sponsors? Is it
Premier sponsors, equipment sponsors, and probably the town committee stuff.
okay? So
Whoever's on that one now, basically. So it would basically be a duplicate of that, and then we'd have the logo, like they've got their slide logo thing, but we have our new one there.
So we originally had 4 panels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
And that was corporate sponsors, equipment list.
It was
Design.
story rules, bulletin board, and then Premier and equipment sponsors. And what was the 4th? Committees? Was committees a full board? I don't remember.
Oh, so I'm trying to remember is that we had a breakdown for a reason, and I feel like we're missing space. Or, the other question is, the metal plaque looks nice and solid. It's not nearly as visible. It's not as.
It's not now because it's stuck in the.
No, I mean like the font size
Oh.
available and the placement. And it's there in perpetuity, but it's not necessarily as branding.
You mean in terms of the businesses having like an ad kind of?
Right, in terms of when we were talking in the other committee the other day, and the woman who was there said that when she gets calls for her business, her question is, what sort of return am I getting on, what sort of branding, sort of.
Oh, and you're thinking a business might prefer the PVC versus the rock?
I'm just thinking that it's definitely a different type of visibility. So.
I think it's actually, and I'll let you speak in a second, but I actually think it's more because you can put it far forward, right? And it's a call out on its own, and it's so much more permanent. And I think I don't know if when I went and actually took pictures of this, it was pretty easy to see the names, but I'll let our branding guy
No,
talk about.
no, I was just gonna say, maybe it won't be an issue with, yeah, I don't know how big that is. Is the rock this big today? I mean, that might end up being the size of the PVC sign anyway, so everything, I feel like the legibility issue might be a wash, you know what I mean? If we had a similar size rock as we would have a PVC sign, albeit lower, I understand that, that. But, I don't know, just all else being equal, myself, I don't know, I gravitate towards that kind of thing, and I would wanna go look at the rock. I don't know.
I like the rock too, but, yeah.
One of the other benefits, and this is, I don't know if this is good or not, but it gives the opportunity for the next, 30 years down the road,
Like
for
the
the next
rock.
crew to
Yeah.
put their rock in place, right? So it kind of ties back into we're honoring the people who built the first one because we're putting them far forward now.
I guess my question is, we're saying with the fundraising that all the way up through next year, people can put money in, and you're not gonna be able to put a plaque on until next year, or we're gonna add to it,
We'll
or?
have to talk about that, yeah. I mean,
Because we had mentioned that with the signage, and we had said, well, the signage is it's fairly cheap, and you can replace it,
right.
and this is.
So maybe have something temporary, you're saying, to start and then add to it? I guess I hadn't thought about that piece, that fundraising.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we should have something sooner, but I mean, permanency is great of that. I just think that we're not gonna have a solid list until next year, based on how our plans for fundraising are.
Currently, unless we decide, you know what, we need to cut it off sooner than later, and
I
Be
think
done with
but I think that's a lost opportunity for fundraising, so. If
If
we're originally
not
talking-
based on not based on
Response?
the calls that I've seen logged into the worksheet. I don't think that there's been a ton of activity there yet, so I think we could still make that call if we needed to.
I guess that's my point. If there hasn't been a ton of activity, maybe it's because of the short time frame, and that over time that we'll have better.
Yeah,
We're trying to do this in a very condensed amount of time, right?
right.
And one of the things we've talked about as a benefit is that we do have more time. We have through the end of the year to do this
Right.
with the fund. And I just feel like fundraising was supposed to be a major goal. I know it's not of this particular committee because we can't do it of this particular committee, but I don't want to set our rock in stone.
You don't want to set your stone in stone?
Yeah.
Good job. I like it.
So, how about this?
Too early,
How about we,
prematurely.
how about we, if we like the idea of moving forward with of the rock and plaque, we
Do a plastic plaque on the rock, maybe?
print a spin-
free rock.
So if this is $8 a square foot, and that's 3 by 3, so 9 times 8, so for $72, we can do a temporary vinyl thing and attach it to the rock.
I think that's probably our
I like,
best.
yeah, I think that's a really good solution to that problem, let everybody know. That way they have something kind of on the grand
Right.
opening, hopefully, or shortly thereafter, and then
I think that would
knowing
be
the
a
more
good-
permanent thing is coming. I think that would satisfy a lot of people.
We're gonna do a rock then.
All right, so we're good with the rock?
I think so, yeah.
Yes.
I like it.
Um,
You didn't have to sell me on it, I like the rock.
So let's muddy it even more. So if we wanted to take,
What happened to getting out of here?
I know I'm trying. It's 8:30. I'm trying. So if
You have to get a chance to talk too.
if we took off the I know, but I've been thinking about this stuff for 2 weeks now. If we take
Email
off,
us, so we can think about it pre here.
if I take off, well, that's why I post all this stuff online. If we take off the seat in the front and we have this sign area, right? If we wanted to, we could make that sign area more interesting by putting a hill, a small little mound of something with grassy stuff, and then arranging the stones in a certain way, right, to be aesthetically pleasing.
Why a hill? Why not just put grassy stuff?
Just maybe it's not the hill, but it's just the varying. This is this is the discussion that I've had with Weston about creating sort of a sign
Oh,
area kiosk. So it's the varying heights. So what could end up happening is you have sort of a hill, and then you have your sign kiosk, and maybe one of the arms or legs of the sign kiosk is sort of in the hill, but it maybe become part covered in stone, so it's sort of a hilly stone sign.
Building the hilly stony mound.
Do you want to go down that path, or do you want to just kind of keep it simple?
My
and keep
vote is to kiss that. You keep it simple, stupid. That's my
I
mom
thought-
motto.
Again, I was just reading through the notes from one of the meeting minutes, and it was like, we decided to have a gravel, you know, we had this discussion, we decided to have like a gravel thing where people could walk up to the signage, like around the signage was gonna be like, because we didn't want like weeds and stuff to pop up or whatever. Like, this is what I'm talking about, where like we had this conversation, and I know things change, but like,
All right, so no on the hill. Do you want Weston to put together a low maintenance garden area around this and arrange the rocks in a pleasing way? No, you just want the sign
I want
kiosk and the
no.
two
if they would
stones.
like to arrange the rocks in a pleasing way around the sign, that would be great. I don't think we want plantings around the base of the sign because they'll just get trampled.
Okay.
Yeah, lots of people standing there, gathering there.
Sitting
Yeah.
there, kicking the ground
Okay.
around the bench.
Yeah, I'm all for move the rocks.
Do you want to keep the benches on both sides of the
I,
design of the sign kiosk?
my feeling is that you walk through, this is my 2 cents, you walk through the covered bridge and you see one side of the sign as soon as you walk through, and there's no bench on that side.
Okay.
And that is the side that has all the information that someone would really want to stand and look at, because you don't want someone wanting to sit there and then someone else come up and be like,
Yeah.
I'd like to read that sign, and then
I
it
feel
just
like we
gets
did
awkward.
have this conversation.
Yes, we did.
Okay, so
And then
and
on the other, because we had a picture like this on the original conversation, but obviously that's water under the bridge. But like, sure, put a bench on the other side and someone can sit there and there's more detailed information, and you, if you want to sit there and you want to look at it, and you want to kneel on the bench while you look at it,
okay,
great.
so 2 rocks and the kiosk, and no bench on the front side of the sign kiosk.
Yeah, are we in agreement that when you walk through, you'd be seeing the flat of the sign? It would be oriented so that it's perpendicular to the bridge. That way,
I would hold off on orienting discussions until we actually get stuff in place to kind of see where stuff goes. But, I mean, theoretically, it sounds good. I think we're going to actually want to be able to walk around the area to see kind of where the best placement and positioning is once, because this is basically just to dig a hole and stick it in the ground with cement. The sign kiosk.
will that be done on build day?
I don't know. I would hope that it would be
If
available.
we're already
done.
doing cement, apparently, we need wheelbarrows and stuff. The email we got.
Oh,
Yes, and that's, we get to that. I don't know. There's no timeline set for this yet.
Okay.
So,
okay. No timeline.
then the only other big major sign would be the natural play area sign, which is sort of, we're not committed to style or content, but that's basically.
Where are we talking about locating that one?
So Weston's gonna put that in the plan once he gets the thing
Okay,
done.
Awesome.
good.
Okay? Any other comments from anybody? I just wanted to have a page of just the different stuff that we've talked about, including, so you can kind of see how it all works together. Top right corner is sort of the stone seating, granite curbing, large granite curbing kind of thing that would function as a
It's
bench.
not a climbing stone.
It is absolutely not a climbing stone and should
And
not be
if
placed
children
anywhere near.
Climb on it, we'll just say no, that's a bench.
And I reached out to,
The playground.
It's
that
a
I
rule of the playground of it has to have, if it's a climbing stone, which there was a theory about putting climbing stones in there, you have to have a fall zone, and you have to have a fall zone with appropriate material around it. So this cannot be a climbing stone unless we were to put in a fall zone. So
Roger.
it's a bench.
and I reached out to Megan to
No
see if
people
there were
climbing.
any planning code considerations for landscaping, and she was not aware of any and could not provide any. So, that's sort of the idea of the bench, just kind of a big rock for people, 3 big rocks for people to sit on. Butterfly garden, shade structure. There's what the spiral, where that whole idea kind of came from, so you can kind of see a real life idea of what it is. Center garden having sort of these little signs that encourage people dealing with the 5 senses, right? That thing next to it is the kinetic wind sculpture, the video that the DIY kinetic wind sculpture. There's the stainless steel 20-inch gazing ball, steel gazing ball. That's $250. The donor sign, and then the buddy bench, whatever it may be. And then we've got the Chelmsford Mass Rocks, and then also the animal imprints. So just kind of a start of the stuff that we've all been talking about. Any questions?
So
Sorry.
that size structure, is that the size? Or
That's
is that
smaller than what
smaller
we're
than
getting?
the structure that we're getting?
The shade structure?
Yeah.
I think that's smaller. I think that one's 12 by 16. I think the one he's doing is, did I say 18 by 20?
And we're only getting 2 benches?
I'll double check about the number of benches, but that's the number that he gave me to put
Okay.
into the catalog for sponsorships.
Because if there's only 2 benches, I'm not sure why we have to put additional walkway space around for wheelchairs. Because I would imagine in a 18 by 20, an 8-foot picnic table leaves plenty of space to go around it, I think.
I'm really bad at conceptualizing that stuff.
Yeah, I just kind of assumed that he was the one who came up with the size and came up with the number of tables, so I was assuming that he's got the placement, but I'll double check with him.
Right, just in terms of adding space, the walkway, you said we had to add something around the shade structure for accessibility, and I'm trying to figure out why you'd need that with 2 tables under there, why you wouldn't be able to have someone
I guess
maneuver.
it's more about access and egress than necessarily the sort of the surrounding area. So it's just to make sure that the pathways can get up close enough to it, and that people can get onto it and off of it. Not necessarily that there has to be a pathway that follows the concrete rectangle. Anything else on these? Fundraising updates, just to kind of let you guys know. Grant writing, I know Heather Allen's been working a lot on, and Adele Stavis have been working a lot on grant writing. I know that we have submitted at least 2 grant submissions so far, and I know that there were, I believe, 5 that we were working on submitting.
That's great.
So that's moving now and
What's the
going.
time frame for hearing back, do we know?
It varies very much. I actually got an email from Fidelity today asking for more information for a grant. So I think it's just gonna vary. There's some issue around the IRS website that lists all the nonprofits. Only gets updated 1 to 2 months on the second Monday after the after the application is approved. So we're not going to get on the database until the second week of May at the earliest. It may be the second week of June. It's the IRS. And some of the
their
grants
systems work.
require that you have to be on the database to get listed, even though we have the determination letter and have shared it. So we're trying to work around that, but that's one of our limiting factors. But it's moving forward, and we're making progress. We
That's great.
submitted a grant to 3M yesterday, and we are actively looking for a dermatologist in the American Association of Dermatology to provide a recommendation letter for us to help
For the
pay
shade
for the
structure
shade
thing?
structure. Right, and we have a history of the town providing skin cancer
Oh,
educational
so did we
things.
find something?
Yes, so we're all set on there.
So we just need a dermatologist.
We need an
Any
AAD dermatologist.
dermatologists who might be watching this broadcast, contact us.
Yes, please contact us as soon as you can. Anybody that's a member of the AAD, you don't have to live in Chelmsford, but just to get us in the door, that's what we need. So that's working, and that's great. Corporate sponsorships, those are also working. I think we have 1 premier confirmed, silver level, 1 equipment sponsor confirmed. I have a check in hand for the Premier sponsorship, not literally in hand, but at home in hand. We've sold, that I know of, 3 bricks due to the people calling and asking. And there are a number of other people that are starting to get communications flowing with these different companies. So I feel good about that. We also have new brochures that we've printed that I would encourage people to to contact us to get copies of that they can give out in local businesses, and we should take some as well. So that's the printed brochures. And John, thank you very much for doing the designs and getting those done.
Yes, thank you. So do
Corporate
we have
sponsorships.
any sort of total on how much we've raised?
For corporate sponsorships so far, it's less than $10,000, but I think there's stuff in the pipeline that's gonna help there.
And we've raised a little over 11,000 for.
Oh, for the bricks. So
Or is that?
so this was as of yesterday. We have, and the way to read this is that we've sold 289. This is as of yesterday. We've actually sold 301, but as of yesterday, 289 bricks. And our proceeds, in addition to having paid for those bricks, is that we have made a little under $12,000.
Great, so we've made over 20,000, about $20,000.
Yeah, we've made a little over $20,000, but if you look at it from, the money we can actually spend, it's 12, and then we have these 289 bricks too. So we should be in good shape to be able to get the pathway, most of that pathway done that we looked at, those 3 options. So we've met goal 1, we're working on goal 2, and we have until April 30th to get it done. So we're working hard. We have flyers and forms if people want to fill them out, and I would encourage people to buy a brick. People are buying them for a variety of reasons, to memorialize people, just to say, our family loves Friendship Park, or for memory of a pet. Businesses are buying them. I've seen businesses buy them where they have literally it's like their business card listed on it, which is fine. That's a perfectly good use of the brick. So we're working hard. Any questions on that? John has actually created a television spot for us, and this is going to be the world premiere. So
Oh, sweet.
It's just that.
I was going to say, that's really great.
Love it.
That money green.
Help us build a new inclusive design Friendship Park playground opening this summer. The Friends of Roberts Field is a volunteer nonprofit working with the town of Chelmsford to help design, build, and fundraise for the new Friendship Park playground opening at Roberts Field in Chelmsford. This new nature-themed playground will be developmentally appropriate for children with and without disabilities. It will have an open, sensory-rich environment and encourage inclusive side-by-side physical and social play for all. The first of its kind in Chelmsford, the Inclusive Design Playground has a park within a park layout, accessible equipment and pathways, and perimeter fencing. It features separate 2 to 5 and 5 to 12-year-old play zones, swings and zipline areas, a shaded picnic area, and lots of opportunities for climbing, rocking, spinning, balancing, swinging, and sliding. There are a variety of ways to help, including sponsorship, donation, and volunteer opportunities. Now through April 30th, you can buy a personalized engraved brick to be placed in a new playground pathway. Sign recognition is also available through Premier sponsorships at Platinum through Bronze levels. We also offer named sponsorships of playground equipment, tables, benches, gardens, and more. Small donations of $5, $10, and $20 will go directly towards building the new playground, and every dollar helps. Looking for hands-on participation? Sign up for our community build June 2nd and 3rd, and help assemble and build the playground equipment at this volunteer event. Please donate and volunteer today to help build a new Friendship Park at Roberts Field and bring inclusive play to Chelmsford.
I love it.
Now, of course, I'm like, it sounds a lot different depending on when you listen to it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious,
that
maybe we can get a
shareable?
test, how it would sound on we're hearing it out of the TV speakers there, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the music may
Sounds
be,
completely different on a laptop.
yeah, the music may be a little,
Yeah,
But-
so
Yeah.
we gotta maybe play with that, but, yeah.
switch the sign out, but other than that, I think you've done an excellent job.
So, did you get all the video from Landscape Structures, or?
I stitched it together from various YouTube things. Yeah.
Awesome.
Excellent, that's cool. What was I gonna ask? I had a question. That's really cool. There was something.
Is it shareable?
It will be,
I
and we'll
can't
put it
wait to
everywhere.
share it. I'm
is
so
it gonna be-
excited.
Yeah, so where are we, is this also gonna be up on Facebook, or
Oh, yeah.
are we reserving it for
No,
TV, or?
no, we'll, so, I'll send it to Telemedia, so it'll run on Telemedia's, local access, right? They'll put it in their rotation, so it'll run on TV there,
Do
right?
they have I didn't even think about any limitations on the length for their kind of platform.
You stopped it, I think if we could break it at 2, make it an even break, I think you have it at like 2 and change, so if we can just make it an even break, that would be the best thing, but there's not really any limitations there. We'll put it on YouTube, we'll post it directly on Facebook, and then put it on the patch. Just we'll share the crap out of it. It's a great spot. It captures I think it captures a lot of what we trying to.
It has
trying to
all
do.
the feels.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully we got the real interesting play structures and,
Mm-hmm.
lots of kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we did get approval from, we shared it with Landscape Structures to get approval
Oh,
for
good.
their footage, and they gave us full permission, so.
Okay, I guess that was kind of a question.
Yes.
Whether Megan had sent you stuff that you were explicitly using, or whether.
He scraped it and then edited it, and then we shared it with her yesterday, and she gave it the blessing and said it was fine, so we're good.
I'm trying to think if there's anywhere else we could share it. I'm not really keyed into technology to know. Instagram, I'm not on Instagram, but it doesn't do movies. That's just pictures. You don't know.
There's
Don't
a
we-
lot of-
I think you can do videos there too. Don't we have a channel?
Yes.
I was gonna say, doesn't like Heather do
Heather has
that?
the
Yeah.
Instagram channel, and then I just opened a new Twitter account, so we can post it on Twitter.
Okay.
There's other video hosting sites besides YouTube, that just seems to be the go-to one.
The
right now.
go-to.
There's, other ones.
Vimeo and places
Vimeo.
like
I was
that.
gonna say,
Other
I was thinking
huge one,
Vimeo,
right?
but then,
I've never heard of
I
it.
just don't know how we catch people there,
Yeah.
We can put it there, I just don't know who would stumble across it.
Right. I can ask the Lowell Sun and the Independent to post it on their online page.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, so if anybody thinks of other places that we can share it and post it, just please do. And again, anything that you see, any supporters of our work, please, if you see stuff on Facebook, like it, of course, but post, say something about it too, because every time you post or say something about it, it pushes it back up into the feed, right? So it's really important to, even just to say, hey, that's great, or something, it all, right, it helps.
So more than like,
More posting, liking, but posting especially.
It might be helpful for me if you could put it on YouTube, you're the owner of that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe just tonight you can put it on as like a private or something like that. Can you do that?
Yeah, so you can
Send me the
test
link,
it.
so maybe I can test it on the TV,
Yep. I'll do that.
See what it looks like in a typical living room or whatever.
Okay.
guessing it's expensive. I'm just excited because our babysitter's in town and we're going to see a movie, which we haven't done, right? But they have all those ads before movies.
It's a great idea.
Like if we could get it at Showcase in Lowell or the one,
sometimes they
one at
have
the Point in
local
Littleton. I have no idea what to
things.
do, but if they provide us with enough ad time that it's an in-kind donation
Yeah.
to be a sponsor.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
I know there's a service that sells ads at that new one in Littleton.
Okay, that's the one we're going to, so I
Great
can
theater.
ask while I'm there.
Yeah. Well, actually, it'll tell you because it told us like a million times who they were.
Okay, I'll be taking a screenshot so I know who to contact.
So we're gonna try to get the billboard on the Route 3 next.
We could do that. I mean, I haven't driven by and seen the call us for advertising, but I've meant to. So,
Yeah.
would you be
Okay.
willing to reach
Yeah,
out to movie
I'll talk
theaters?
to those two theaters. So it's Showcase. I just thought that's a big bandwidth if, you know,
Absolutely.
they would be willing, like I said, as an
With a
in-kind
captive
donation.
audience.
And a family-friendly audience, they could show it in family-friendly films. That's a
Yeah.
great idea.
Yeah, no need to show it at the gray movies. We don't want that kind of help. Showcase, and I don't know what it's called, the Point in Little, I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know
The
that,
Point.
or the Point in Littleton, that's where we're going. Okay, I'll check that out this weekend.
All right. Whoops.
Oh.
Okay.
No, it's okay again.
No, it's okay, because I had a question that I can't think of it now.
Want to go back and watch
I
it one more
kind of
time?
want to see it again because I had a question and it's driving me crazy.
Nice.
And just be soothed by the music and the greenery.
It's very soothing, yeah, fun,
Help us build the new inclusive design Friendship Park Playground
Love that.
opening this summer.
yeah.
The Friends of Roberts Field is a volunteer nonprofit group working with the town of Chelmsford to help design, build, and fundraise for the new Friendship Park Playground opening at Roberts Field in Chelmsford. This new nature-themed playground will be developmentally appropriate for children with and without disabilities. It will have an open, sensory-rich environment and encourage inclusive side-by-side physical and social play for all. The first of its kind in Chelmsford, the Inclusive Design Playground has a park within a park layout, accessible equipment and pathways, and perimeter fencing. It features separate 2 to 5 and 5 to 12-year-old play zones, swings and zipline areas, a shaded picnic pavilion, and lots of opportunities for climbing, rocking, spinning, balancing, swinging, and sliding. There are a variety of ways to help, including sponsorship, donation, and volunteer opportunities. Now through April 30th, you can buy a personalized engraved brick to be placed in a new playground pathway. Sign recognition is also available through premier sponsorships at platinum through bronze levels. We also offer named sponsorships of playground equipment, tables, benches, gardens, and more. Small donations of $5, $10, and $20 will go directly towards building the new playground, and every dollar helps. Looking for hands-on participation? Sign up for our community build June 2nd and 3rd, and help assemble and build the playground equipment at this volunteer event. Please donate and volunteer today to help build a new Friendship Park at Roberts Field and bring inclusive play to Chelmsford.
Thank you for humoring me. I remembered my question, which has nothing to do with the spot. But is there any way, if we can get a rendering for the natural space, that we can get Megan to put it into her rendering?
I sent an email asking her that question,
Yeah.
and I did not get a response. So I'm assuming
Do
that
we
it's
have
outside their contract.
Ownership of the rendering? Like if someone had SolidWorks or something.
I think we could meld it if the DPW would work with us on that. And my expectation is that we would. That
Right. I mean, because it would be good to get it on the signs. I mean, there's already a tree missing from that rendering, so that's.
right.
But I think it would be really good if we could get it positioned
Right.
into it.
I agree.
Somehow.
And the fence is missing right now. I asked for a 2D rendering with perimeter fencing, with the gate openings, with the walkway being split between the two fences like we talked about, and then specifically if they could add the natural play area design once it was finalized. And
Covered bridge, any possibility?
it's on there. The covered bridge is on the rendering now.
Apparently
It's just
I'm blind.
sticking out. It's just tiny.
Yeah.
So
I was just looking at the natural area or lack
Yeah.
thereof.
we should be able to. I mean, it's not. It needs to be a final. We need to have a design, and that's going to be a big part of it. So, any other? Sorry.
Just one thing, so you want to go with, do you have a nice photo of the rock, is that what you want to do?
I have a photo of the rock. I'll send to you, and let me know if it works. If it doesn't, I can go take one.
Sponsorship?
The sponsor stone, yeah.
That's
Versus the because we show the.
We were gonna put him in there.
Perfect. I'm a
Excellent.
huge fan.
Yeah, so that was, so since we've kind of, this is good, because we kind of have gravitated towards that as the sponsor, the way to do it. That was my only worry, that we put a rock there and then it ended up being on a PVC, like stand-up PVC sign.
We're going to go with the rock,
I think we're
Yeah,
going.
so we'll slip that right in there then.
and that'll be
Then we just need to get the rock on Twitter to get.
Yeah.
Anybody know him? 7 degrees or separation?
I think that only works with Kevin Bacon.
Rock's way cooler. Sorry, Kevin Bacon.
Seriously though, if anybody does know anybody, any local celebrities, I've been racking my brain trying to think of people that we could reach out to, not for an endorsement necessarily, but just for a retweet or something, you know, like
We have local celebrities.
What's a local
Yeah.
celebrity?
Yeah,
regional,
sorry.
like a Jerry Callahan, right, on WEI. He's a guy he's one of the radio guys, sports
Okay.
talk
Oh,
guys.
that's why I don't
All
know.
right,
Okay,
yeah, sorry.
now I feel
Tweets a
better.
lot, right? So he's got a lot of people that are tweeting, and so if he just retweeted something that our spot, then that's going to give us a ton of exposure. Or a Politico, you know, maybe somebody knows the lieutenant governor or governor or whatever. You know what I mean? If there's anybody that you're sort of halfway connected to that has any kind of public cash, we should try to convince them to help. And Adele's working
Why
on
do you
Jeff
look at
Bellman.
me?
I'm
Like
looking-
somehow I know everybody.
No, I'm looking at you to see if you have any more of a glimmer of I got no one.
So at the
I know preschool teachers. That's about my level of
My
well,
hero.
it's just you never know.
Yeah.
You know, a friend of a friend. It's the 7 degrees of separation. So the community build update. We met with Megan at the last Friends of Roberts Field meeting, and this is the information that she gave us. So we're still looking at a June 2nd to 3rd community build, likely a 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. broken into 2 shifts. We are going to have 11 equipment assembly teams. She sent me the PDFs of those. I just need to get those posted. And then we can share those with people to get them interested in sort of looking at the equipment that they might want to work on during the assembly or during the community build beforehand. We're going to have a need for registration and support volunteers to set up the table and register people. And we talked about potentially designing and creating T-shirts that we'll need to figure out a way to fund for volunteers as well. Equipment needs, specific things that we're going to have to create, and I believe you're working on this, Daniil, create the packet of information, sort of a registration thing, and then that it's going to identify the tools that people are going to be asked to bring. And this is the list. The 3/8-inch ratchet driver was the main thing that she stressed. We also need the A-frame ladders, the self-standing ladders, levels, metal wheelbarrow, and round nose shovels for the concrete work that's going to happen on June 2nd, I believe she said, which is weird because, anyway.
So they couldn't get concrete on Sundays for whatever reason, that it usually happened around 1 for a delivery. So.
Yeah, and I guess they're doing all the big structure stuff first, so they'll have all that in place, and that's the stuff that's going to get concreted. So the volunteers will be doing a lot of the concrete schlepping that day. And then I know you were reaching out for food and water needs. You were working on trying to find sponsorships for those things.
And childcare, any?
I threw a Hail Mary and it might have panned out something, but I don't want to say
Okay.
something publicly and back somebody into a corner.
No, definitely
So-
not.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah,
The
I mean,
name
there are
consideration's
places,
great.
there are places around that offer weekend childcare, so I've basically said, if we advertise you as that's an option at your regular price, at a discounted price, that's something that you're comfortable with, and we'll see, what
Right.
comes out of that, just so that we can let people know that are looking for it. There are different ways to get around that.
We currently have about 20 people signed up for the community build.
Does that include committee members or?
Anybody can sign up, but there's only,
But this is just the official sign up.
correct, right. So this is
So I
the-
should probably sign up. I
Yeah, I'm
guess.
thinking, I don't know that I'm signed up
that's a
either.
nicer way of saying, no, you haven't signed up yet.
Yes.
Oh,
I just assumed I was assumed.
Well, we have this database of names that sort of says name, address, phone number, and then what things are you interested in. So in that database, we have about 20 names so far. And I would expect that as we get closer to the date, it'll grow.
We need 50 per day.
Yes,
Per
50 per day per shift. So we need 50 people on site
At any one time.
at any one time.
Okay.
But we're working on it. We've made good headway, and there'll be a lot more work to get this community build thing organized and done as we move forward. Any questions or comments? I wanted to point this out. You actually brought this up earlier. This is actually a slide out of the Roberts Field master plan, just to say that this was a recommendation that we create, that this committee be charged with creating the park maintenance plan. And these are the things that the park maintenance plan would include. I have I have a good selection of sample plans that we can copy, but I just wanted to make everybody aware that this is something that I think we should be putting on our agenda down the road, right, before we.
After we're done with the, getting through the immediate.
I think it's probably one of those things, you know, that we kind of work on. It's not a heavy and fast thing we have to focus on, but we need to get it done
We
before.
should keep it in mind, but I don't think we should, if we have other things that are.
Yeah, it's not a
Time-sensitive.
front burner kind of a thing, but it's something we need to take care of because all of our terms end in June.
Oh,
So if we, depending on where we all net out and if the committee moves forward,
what is it, a 9-month term?
June
or what is-
31st, I think it was. Yeah, it was shortened. It was just to get us through this project pretty much. So we can talk about what we're going to do moving forward, but at least I think that we should make this as one of our goals to get the maintenance plan done.
And are
before
we
our terms end.
making a maintenance plan that DPW is gonna follow, that volunteers are gonna follow?
Hybrid.
Both. So
Okay.
DPW is going to be, the brunt of this is going to be what they're going to do to maintain the things. But mainly what it does is it just sets out in a document, these are the things that need to be maintained, and this is sort of how they will be maintained, and just sort of the schedule.
But I mean, so in making this, we really have to like work collaboratively with them.
Oh,
We can't
absolutely.
just write it and,
Right.
yeah.
And like, and part of this is like establishing the rules for the playground, and that would be part of this maintenance plan too. So, we're gonna have to,
Okay.
we're gonna be working with them to get this done. The way I would envision is that we would sort of draft up something and then share it with them and then get feedback and then sort of just get it done that way. So, good? Next meeting date?
Oh, the calendar. Oh,
I put Memorial Day on here just to say that that's Memorial Day, not to say that that's an option.
Oh,
That's not an
Just so you knew that the 28th was a Memorial, in case anybody was traveling, so that might make the 29th or the 30th not a doable date. But if you could give me, if there's two dates that we've been choosing one early and one late, but if you could give me, if you can't do that, if you could just give me maybe a couple of dates to choose from, just so I have the flexibility. But these were all, this room and the telemedia were all available for these dates that are on here.
and what's our goal for
It's-
the next?
Next steps, the things we have to work on, they're all listed there.
Okay.
That I could think of.
I can tell you the week of the 16th and 17th is out for me. Both those dates. Maybe the 21st.
I'm kind of thinking that if we're gonna move forward with the natural design, we need something sooner sorted out, like the 2nd or the 8th.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
Because that's a month before build, May 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't even know what's going in yet, that's kind of huge.
Right.
So I would vote for the 2nd.
The 2nd?
Okay, so May 2nd, and can we pick one more date later in the month? And just hold that as a tentative date?
May 8th. I'm really afraid that if we don't have something.
No, I mean, well, like, let's pick, May 2nd is yes, and then let's pick
Oh,
maybe a
okay.
date later in
Oh,
the
okay.
month, so that we
Okay.
have one. And like we've done in the past, we haven't canceled any yet, but if we decide we need to.
So I mean, for me, I'd be looking at,
Sorry,
The-
May.
go
sorry.
ahead.
May 2nd is agreed on.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay. Okay. And you said you can't do the 16th, 17th, right?
Yeah, sorry,
Okay.
kid having surgery. So,
So,
hopefully the 21st or 22nd.
yeah, which is literally a week before the community build.
Right.
So how about the 21st to give us as much time as possible
Mm-hmm.
to see what we need?
Okay. May 2nd and May.
To, we're gonna have to wrap the, I don't know, we have to wrap the brick payments and all that stuff up. So we're gonna have to have a meeting somewhere in the first part of the month there as well.
Well,
So
that's okay. There's 3 weeks between the two we just set up, so.
So May 2nd and 21st. Those are our 2 dates. Okay.
21st?
Correct. May 2nd and May 21st.
7 p.m., same time,
7
same
p.m.,
place.
same room, same time, same
place.
that channel.
But the chairs in the other room are better.
And then the last thing, just to remind everybody that Saturday morning, we are meeting at Roberts Field as part of the Earth Day townwide cleanup. We'll be cleaning up Roberts Field from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., meeting behind Engine 3. And we'll have a lot of different things, activities for people to do, cleanup activities for people to do, including picking up park litter, doing some trail maintenance, getting the graffiti off of the big rock at the Jonathan Lane trailhead, and then some light gardening and invasive plant pulls. So I encourage people to come out Saturday morning at 10 a.m. to join us. And unless anybody has any other comments.
Are we
We
ready
didn't
to?
go to 10, so that's
Yeah.
still a win.
Are we able to approve any of the meeting
Oh, the meeting
minutes
minutes.
to get
Sorry,
them
yeah,
off
yeah,
our?
sorry.
Even if we can't approve all of them,
I
can
could
we approve
Approve like the first
some of them, or
3?
approve them in?
I
yeah.
think like the 12th, the 20th, and the.
So you sent out February 12th, February 20th, February 27th, and March 15th
But there
today.
were like
Everything
2
except for
There
April.
were 2 from the 20th, I think, right?
Right, there was 2 because we had a public input session, so I had a separate minutes for that, and then a minutes for just us that met after that as well.
I have only managed to look at the first 3, so
Okay,
I would
and I'll
like-
make that small change where I added the
Yeah.
committee twice and something. My computer actually
About the committee, about the
crashed,
committee,
yeah, so
yes.
we had
So-
issues recovering files.
So you've reviewed February 12th, February 20th, and February 27th.
I was saying both 20ths and the 12th. I'm only
So-
halfway through the 27th.
The 12th, okay.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for February 12th and February 20th with the changes that you identified to Danielle. Is there a second?
I second it.
Great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Go.
And then
So,
there's still the 27th and the 15th, is that it?
27th, 15th, and the 4th.
Oh, is,
what are you gonna do about the 4th?
I mean, I'm upset that no minutes were taken. I totally get that this is my job and I'm not here, but when I can't be here, it's like I respect other people's time, and I don't have 3 hours to go watch meeting. How long did the meeting last? Was it, I wasn't here, so I don't know.
Tilton. I mean, I did the last one. I
I
transcribed the
I
last one.
appreciate that very much, but there's other people. I'm calling on the other people. There's.
Well, do you wanna hold off on that and when we have a
Yeah, I'm
full
not
board
going
next
to
time?
do that. My plate is full right now.
Okay.
So that's not something that I can do right now unless I don't enter bricks or don't do other parts that are really, time sensitive. Not that minutes aren't time sensitive, but I'm trying to prioritize. So I do my best to be here. I was on a plane on my way home from Texas.
So do you wanna hold off on trying to, unless you wanna volunteer to transcribe now?
I do not want to volunteer to transcribe right now.
All right. So at the next meeting, we'll ask somebody's got to step up and do it. And so
Yep.
we'll do, if you'll review the February 27th and March 15th minutes, and then at the next meeting, we will
Hopefully clear those 2 and then we'll be.
do those 2, and then
And
hopefully
hopefully
get somebody to
tonight.
volunteer for the transcription of the April 4th meeting
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah, right now I just don't have that time.
All right. Any other comments or questions?
I have none.
None? So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
I
Yeah,
no.
that's close enough. Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you.